Ever observe how certain individuals can utter the simplest phrase and instantly gain respect, while others talk endlessly and barely get acknowledged? It's almost as if there's a hidden language at play, one that's not just about the words chosen, but how they're delivered, shaped, and even paused. Yes, even silence is part of the language you're using, whether you realize it or not. Now, consider this. Why do you sound the way you do? Why do some people have that clear, articulate flow, while others mumble their words into oblivion? It's not just about accents or education. Your voice, tone, rhythm, and even the tiny unconscious inflections you use have been shaped by forces you probably never questioned. Your upbringing, social environment, the people you admired, those you feared, and even the moments that embarrassed you into silence. For instance, take a child who grows up in a household where everyone speaks loudly. They learn, without ever being told, that volume equals authority. Then there's the child who grows up in a strict home where speaking out of turn gets them a sharp look. They develop a habit of trailing off at the end of sentences, almost as if apologizing for taking up space. Fast forward 20 years, and the first child is the person who dominates meetings with their booming voice, while the second struggles to get a word in without being interrupted. But it doesn't stop at childhood. The way you speak is like a mirror, reflecting your entire life experience. Ever noticed how people unconsciously mimic the speech patterns of their friends? That's because language is social currency. You don't just talk to communicate. You talk to belong. This is why spending a year in a new city can completely change your vocabulary, slang, and even the way you phrase things. It's why someone who moves from a small town to a big city often finds themselves speaking faster, as if trying to keep up with the pace of urban life. And let's not forget status. Whether you like it or not, your speech is constantly broadcasting social cues. Studies show that people with more assertive, confident speech patterns are often perceived as more competent, regardless of what they're actually saying. That's why a person who speaks with an upward inflection, where their voice rises at the end of a sentence, often gets taken less seriously. It makes everything sound like a question, even when they're making a statement. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Your voice is not just something you were given, it's something you can shape. That's right, you can quite literally change the way the world perceives you by tweaking how you talk. But before we get into how, let's first break down the hidden psychological triggers in your speech that dictate how people respond to you without you even realizing it. So, if the way you speak can shape how people perceive you, what exactly are they picking up on? It turns out that human brains are wired to read subtle signals in speech that reveal way more about a person than they ever intended. And the crazy part? This happens in milliseconds. Before your listener even consciously processes what you're saying, their brain has already judged you. For instance, let's talk about tone. Tone isn't just an afterthought, it's the emotional fingerprint of your speech. Ever meet someone who constantly sounds drained, like life has just been one long Monday? Even when they say something positive, it somehow feels negative. That's because they've unconsciously adopted a low-energy tone, which makes everything they say feel heavy, like they're dragging their words along the ground. People pick up on that without even realizing it. They start mirroring that energy, and suddenly the entire conversation feels like it's stuck in slow motion. But then there's the opposite. A person whose words feel like they have a pulse. Ever had a conversation with someone who made even the most basic topic sound exciting? They could be talking about grocery shopping, and suddenly you're on the edge of your seat. What's the difference? Intentional variation in tone and pace. They're not just speaking. They're conducting a symphony of sound, speeding up when they want to pull you in, slowing down when they want you to absorb something, lowering their voice when they want you to lean in, and emphasizing certain words to make sure they land. But there's another sneaky factor at play here: your breath. Breath control isn't just for singers and monks. It's directly tied to how confident you sound. People who rush through their sentences tend to take shallow, panicked breaths. Ever notice how nervous speakers run out of air before finishing their thought? That's because their body is literally treating speech as a fight or flight response. Meanwhile, powerful speakers pause, breathe, and own the silence. They understand that control over breath equals control over presence, and when you control your presence, you control how people respond to you. Now, let's talk about word choice. Believe it or not, the specific words you use can rewire how people perceive your intelligence, confidence, and even trustworthiness. Some people sabotage themselves without even realizing it. Ever heard someone constantly use filler words like, you know, or I mean? It's like their sentences are filled with speed bumps, making it impossible to take them seriously. It's not that they don't know what they're talking about. It's that they don't sound like they do. And then there are the verbal hedgers, the people who weaken their own statements before they even finish them. I think maybe we should try this. Or, I'm not sure, but why are you undermining yourself before you even finish the thought? The moment you attach uncertainty to your own words, people stop trusting them. And here's the kicker. People who speak like this aren't actually unsure. They're just afraid of sounding too confident. Society has conditioned them to believe that being direct is somehow aggressive, so they dilute their own words out of fear of coming off too strong. But here's where it gets even deeper. Your speech pattern is a map of your inner world. It's not just about communication, it's about beliefs. The way you speak reflects how much space you believe you deserve. If you shrink your voice, trail off, or hesitate too much, it's not just a habit, it's a subconscious belief that your thoughts don't carry weight. And if that's what you believe, guess what? That's exactly how people will treat you. The good news is this can be changed. You're not locked into one way of speaking for life. The brain is plastic, meaning it's constantly rewiring itself. By tweaking a few key elements in how you speak, you can literally reshape how the world reacts to you. So let's break it down. How do you actually take control of your voice and make people listen? Let's get into the practical tools that can transform your speech and, by extension, your presence. So now that we understand how speech reflects confidence and presence, let's talk about something even more subtle, but just as powerful: how rhythm, silence, and emphasis create influence. Ever notice how some people can hold an entire room with just a few words, while others talk for minutes but no one really hears them? That's not an accident. It's a technique. And whether they realize it or not, it's something the most persuasive speakers in history have mastered. And it's got nothing to do with what they say. It's how they say it. Let's start with rhythm. Speech is basically music. Some people talk in one long, flat, endless drone. It's predictable, boring, and after a while, your brain just tunes it out. But then there are the people who play with rhythm, who switch up the pacing, letting certain words hit hard while others almost disappear. It's that contrast, that up and down movement, that makes people pay attention. And here's where it gets really interesting. Pauses. Pauses are like the punctuation of spoken language, and the best speakers use them like weapons. See, silence is uncomfortable, and when you know how to use it, you can control the entire energy of a conversation. For example, let's say you're making a point. Instead of rushing through it, you pause right before the punchline. You let the silence hang for just a second too long. What happens? The listener leans in, Their brain starts filling in the gap, and when you finally deliver the next words, they land harder because the silence made space for them. Now compare that to someone who never stops talking. No gaps, no space, just a constant stream of words. It's like background noise. But a well-placed pause? That's like a sudden cut to black in a movie scene. It demands attention. And whether people realize it or not, they'll respect a speaker who knows how to hold silence, because silence isn't empty. It's full of potential. But there's another trick that most people never use. Emphasis. Think about it. You can say the same sentence 5 different ways and completely change its meaning just by shifting the emphasis. Take this sentence. I didn't say she stole the money. Now let's put emphasis on different words. I didn't say she stole the money. Someone else did. I didn't say she stole the money. Maybe I hinted at it, but I never actually said it. I didn't say she stole the money. She might have taken it, but not in a way that counts as stealing. I didn't say she stole the money. Somebody stole it, but not her. Same words, completely different impact. This is what powerful speakers understand. They don't just speak, they sculpt their words. They know that a slight change in tone, rhythm, or emphasis can completely shift how their message is received. And if you think this doesn't apply to you, just watch what happens when you start using it. Next time you're in a conversation, slow down just a little, play with silence, put emphasis on the words that matter, and notice how suddenly people start leaning in. But here's the deeper part of this. Why don't most people do this naturally? Why do most people shrink their own voice instead of expanding it? The answer is in the way we've been trained to communicate. Most people don't speak to be heard. They speak to not be ignored. There's a difference. See, when you grow up learning that speaking too loudly or too directly makes people uncomfortable, you start shrinking yourself. You stop taking up space. You learn to talk just enough to not disappear, but never enough to command a presence. And if you carry that into adulthood, you'll find yourself in situations where you're being talked over, dismissed, or overlooked. Not because your ideas aren't good, but because you don't deliver them with enough weight. But what happens when you flip that? When you learn to own the space you take up? When you stop shrinking and start speaking deliberately with rhythm, silence, and emphasis? You don't just change how people hear you, you change how people experience you. And when that happens, when you start speaking with power, you'll notice something wild. Conversations shift, people respond differently, and suddenly the world listens in a way it never did before. But let's take this one step further, because this is just the beginning. You can refine this skill even more, and there's one last crucial piece that brings everything together. Let's get into it. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because speech isn't just about what you say or even how you say it. It's also about who you are when you say it. See, the most compelling speakers, the ones who can walk into a room and instantly make people listen, aren't just using tricks like pacing, silence, and emphasis. They're speaking from a place of certainty. And here's the truth that most people don't realize. Your voice is only as powerful as your belief in what you're saying. Think about the last time you heard someone speak who was truly magnetic. They weren't just talking, they were owning their words. There was no hesitation, no over-explaining, no nervous energy in their voice. They weren't waiting for validation or approval. They were simply delivering. And because they believed in their own words, so did everyone else. But here's where most people go wrong. They focus on trying to sound confident instead of actually being confident. And you can hear the difference. A voice that's searching for validation has a different rhythm. It's a little higher, a little more rushed, with those subtle questioning inflections at the end of sentences. It's like they're constantly checking, Is this okay? Do you agree? Am I making sense? Meanwhile, someone who is deeply secure in their message doesn't need reassurance. Their voice lands with weight even when they pause. It doesn't feel like hesitation. It feels like control. And here's the part no one tells you. It's not about eliminating fear. It's about speaking in spite of it. Even the most confident speakers feel nervous sometimes. The difference is they don't let the nervousness lead their voice. They've trained themselves to anchor into a deeper certainty, even when their mind is screaming with self-doubt. And the fastest way to do this? Lower your voice just slightly. Not fake deep like you're trying too hard, but just enough to ground yourself. It sends a signal to your own nervous system that says, "I've got this." And guess what? When your body believes it, your voice follows. Now, let's talk about the biggest mistake that weakens your voice instantly. Filler words. You know the ones. Like, you know. Most people don't even realize how much they use them. And it's not just about sounding polished, it's about energy. Every time you use a filler word, it's like dropping a tiny question mark into your sentence. It weakens the impact. It tells the listener, "I'm unsure." But here's the fix, and it's way simpler than people think. Instead of filling space with or like, just pause. That's it. Just stop talking for a second. Let silence do the work. A well-placed pause is 1,000 times more powerful than a string of filler words. And here's where it gets crazy. The more you cut out fillers, the more authoritative your voice sounds instantly. Try it next time you speak. Catch yourself before the filler word comes and replace it with nothing. You'll feel the shift, because at the end of the day, the most powerful voice isn't the loudest, the fastest, or even the most eloquent. It's the voice that knows itself. The voice that doesn't rush to fill space, doesn't shrink to avoid discomfort, and doesn't waver in the face of silence. And once you master this, you'll realize something most people never figure out. The way you speak isn't just a reflection of how people see you, it's a reflection of how you see yourself. So here's the challenge. For the next 24 hours, start noticing how you speak. Where do you speed up? Where do you use filler words? Where do you hesitate when you don't actually need to? And if this video hit you in a way that made you rethink something, hit that like button so I know this is the kind of content you want more of. And drop a comment below. What's one thing you've noticed about your own speech that you want to change? Because once you start tweaking this, people won't just hear you, they'll listen.